All right. And if everyone doesn't mind, when you're kind of coming here in the chat, go ahead and drop in, company name and role. I always love to know if we have more of kind of a tactical bunch, or if we've got some leaders in here as well too. And I can try to take the conversation either way. So feel free, drop in the chat a little bit about yourself, company name, role, and we'll jump into it. So yeah, what's up, everyone? Hope you're having a good start to your Monday. For this talk, if you don't know about me, I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. And then look, at the end of the day, I want all of you, this is about you, and what I mean by that is that you're going to get out of this what you put into it. And so you've got me. I'm somebody who has conversations with probably 20 to 30 CEOs and sales leaders on outbound and other topics. So I'm here to help, here to give you my 2 cents. Let's see, we've got Nicole, director. What's up? Eric Ariz from Israel. Dahlia, SDR. Global sales dev, love it. SDR manager, director. All right, so we've got a good mix of folks here, which is great. Love it. Okay, so I'm going to hop in here, and then we're going to have about 20 minutes. I've got everyone. I'm going to take everyone off mute, so y'all can just kind of jump in. Here's what I would say. You can use the question. So there's a little, if you look down in the bottom, right next to the chat, there's a little icon that's for questions. So do me a favor. I will be monitoring that in real time. So as I'm going through something, if you're like, Jake, can you double down on that? Can you go back? Or if you have a question that you want to make sure we cover, just drop it in the Q&A. I'm pretty dynamic in terms of being able to go and tackle it. So welcome. This is the first I've got the new home office set up too. So it's kind of weird. I think there's Visibos, there's like a delay, but for the most part, it's going pretty well. So, all right, we've got Holly, what's going on? Sales dev manager, Demetrius, BDR at Paystand, director of sales, doing tons of SDR. Good. So we got a mix of leaders and individual contributors in here, which I love. So today I'm going to talk about the new normal, right? Which is this kind of overused statement, but for all of you leaders out there, this is for you. And for your teams, this is hopefully a chance for you to break the mindset that when we look at the things that our counterparts are doing over in marketing and how they run their engine, we have to start to be more nimble. And that's what I'm going to talk to you about today on some very practical ways that you can do that. If you don't know about me, I'm Jake Dunlap. I'm the CEO of Scaled. Mr. David Delaney, who runs this conference, I actually hired. When did I hire David? This would have been like 9 years ago at Glassdoor. So I go way back with David. Scaled, I started 7 years ago after being the VP of sales at Glassdoor and then at a company called Chartbeat out of New York. And what we do is we've got about 30 people. Everyone's remote now, but we're headquartered in Austin and in New York. And we're really focused on helping internal teams build and scale. And so we partner with senior sales leadership, senior executive leadership, helping to optimize demand gen processes, which is why I'm going to talk about our method right now, how to optimize their sales process and sales motion, the handoffs between groups. So think of us as like a very hands-on sales consulting company where, the whole reason I started the company was I got sick of working with consultants that would sit here and tell me a bunch of stuff that I already knew. And I wanted an opportunity to actually get stuff done. And so we really partner with execs and teams that are trying to get stuff done. So if any of this resonates with you and you're an SDR leader, please feel free, DM me. I've got some social accounts here that you can find me on. I'm very active on LinkedIn. So I look forward to connecting with all of you afterwards and answering any questions you might have, and we can go from there. Like I said, when you start to have questions, and I'm going to make sure that we leave room for the Q&A as well too, start to drop them in real time. I like it when these things are interactive. Like I said, I've unmuted all of you. So if you want to come live, you want to join me and ask your question, I love that shit. So David did not tell me I couldn't cuss, so he knows better. So I'm going to talk about this first, is what is a performance agency mindset? And I want to challenge all of you. And I'd love to hear too, maybe start to drop in the chat a little bit more about your team in particular. A performance agency mindset is I want you to think about your counterparts in marketing that are out there driving leads with ads, using other mediums. Imagine your marketing team is spending $50,000 a month, $100,000, it could be 20, it could be 2 million, it doesn't really matter. They invest between, depending on the firm, between like 5 to 15% of that cost in optimization, right? So that means they're spending $20,000 a month, 10,000, whatever that is, in ongoing optimization. And that's across a few different. It's the channels they're using, it's the creative they're using, it's then the remix of the segments that they're targeting. They're doing this all in real time. And so when I say that in sales, dev, and outbound, we need to have a performance mindset, that is what I'm talking about. And a lot of you are like, well, Jake, of course we're performance related. And I know that you are. But I want you to think about the speed that all of you, whether you're using SalesLoft or Outreach or Groove or Apply.io or whatever you're using, doesn't really matter. That the mindset that we have to start to have is you're pumping hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of data points through these systems every week. Therefore, this whole idea that we just set it and forget it for every 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, and we wait and see, that's got to go. We have got to change foundationally the way that we think of the job of BD. We have all these amazing tools, and I'm going to jump into all of these amazing tools, but if it's a mindset shift, that if every week or 2 weeks you are not completely rebuilding or tweaking or optimizing, you are operating like 2018. And for a lot of you, you might be thinking like, well, Jake, how do we have time, et cetera? But I'm going to try to get into that. And hopefully we can do that. Yes, David, it was 2011. So there's 3 core principles that you're going to take away from this. Okay. Like I said, if you want to talk to me afterwards about it, fantastic. If not, you can go do this yourself. It doesn't require me or my team or anybody. So the way I want you to think about this is optimize often. Okay. This is what I was getting at, that right now we are too slow and not nimble enough in the speed at which we optimize our sequences. And by the way, I'm just going to use the term sequences as a catch-all for cadences or flows or whatever. Okay. So we have to start to change our mindset on the frequency. I'm going to give you a very practical example. When COVID hit, I didn't have to tell you all to do this, right? COVID was a hard pivot. COVID was like hey, Jake, like nothing's working right now. We got to figure stuff out. The problem is that's how we should have been operating from the beginning, is that we should have been making these tweaks and these pivots based on data, based on results. But instead, we've taken a very long-term view of this every 2 weeks, every 4 weeks. My friends, there's a statistics principle called the law of large numbers. And for all of you, if you're pumping thousands of data points through a sequence, the law of large numbers will tell you that you have enough data to get leading indicators of what's working and what's not. And so the speed by which we optimize, we have to foundationally change the way we think about that entire engine. The next is automation, and I'm going to go through each one of these one by one. Automate when needed. The issue I see with so many sequences today is we're automating the things we shouldn't be automating. When I go in and look at the number of automation rules that we have on the back end to do better targeting, to do better assignment, to do better lead routing, to do better follow-up and nurturing, instead, an average company has like 5 automation rules, and it's like opt out when they reply all. Like that's not an automation rule one. Whereas leading companies have like 40 automation rules, 50 automation rules for all that nasty stuff behind the scenes. And then that frees up their team to be doing more time engaging and not automating and hitting the send all. I was talking to an SDR Wednesday night, and she works at a company. I won't say the company's name. They require them to do 134 activities. And on Friday, their manager sent out something, and it was like, we've got, X hundred more. So what do you think she went and did? She went and hit send all on 200 emails, and she got rewarded for it. Wow, you just sent 200 emails. Is that really the behavior that you all want to incentivize? I want you to think really hard about that. The behavior you want to incentivize is results, right? So automate when needed. And a lot of the automations we should be doing are behind the scenes, not in front. And the third is no more of looking at our landscape as call emails here, and then like direct mail, LinkedIn, and video, and these things over here. It's integrated. And that the modern sequence doesn't just have a, call, email, call, LinkedIn, and it's an in-mail. A modern sequence is integrated. So I'm going to talk through kind of what excellence looks like for each one of these. And then, again, what I want to do is get into some Q&A, and feel free. I'd love to know, maybe in the chat, just how often are you, maybe two-part question here. How often are you actually, optimizing, completely ripping out and like rewriting sequence and sequence strategy? And then, two, how many of you, have 50% of your sequences that have automation? I'd just be curious to know. So I don't know how many of you are science fans or not. Believe it or not, I always enjoyed chemistry, and it served me actually very well in sales. That we have to come up with this mindset: it's test, adjust, repeat, and that the job never ends. It goes on for forever. And I feel like this simple mindset, that if you're an SDR leader, it's never over. If every 2 weeks you don't have a process in place that's set to analyze, adapt, adjust, and then re-engineer and redeploy, you're moving too slow. So imagine if you have 30 sequences, okay, or cadences, and you're optimizing them, really hardcore optimizing every 6 to 8 weeks. And imagine now your competition is doing it every 2 weeks. My friends, I don't know if you've kind of seized these divergence. Over the course of a year, they're going to get in almost 30 extra optimization cycles. And so their results are going to be exponentially higher. And so I want all of you to really think about the frequency of this and the mindset. Your job as SDR leaders is to continually to optimize for the most ideal outcome, which is a qualified meeting. That is your job. Not to crack the whip, not to make sure people hit their activities. It is to optimize. You are not a doer anymore. You're a leader. And if you're on the front lines, you should be doing this for yourself. If I was on the front lines right now, what I would be taking away from this is, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to go into my tool, and I'm going to look at the best practices of everybody else, and I'm just going to rip them off every week. It's the same mindset, right? That's how I grew my own sales career. I'd go and listen to what other people are doing. I'm like, oh man, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that. So again, test, adjust, repeat. You have to kind of switch this up. Right. Again, when you think about, again, like here's just like a quick, dashboard here. This is, I think we pulled this from Outreach. But again, it's like all of you have these tools, right? You all have these tools. You all have these at your fingertips. My question is, how often are you looking at them? Right? Or are you being micromanaging, and the real thing you're looking at is number of activities skipped? Forget number of activities skipped. Go focus on what's working, and then look across your sequences and cadences and start to continually engineer these. We're too focused in the SDR game of micromanaging people, and we need to be in the optimization game and feeding it into them of this is how you should be executing, not over focusing on activities 24/7. Okay, right? This is obviously, you can tell this is a pet peeve of mine. This idea of send all, that we have to start to map for each buyer segmentation. There's a couple of trends and behaviors that we see that very, very frequently people are not really looking at the outcomes that the sequences are producing in the micro and which pieces are actually producing it. And so, if all of you can walk away with one thing, which is like this again, like stop hitting send all, guys. I'm just telling you right now, and I want all of you to think about this. Do you think Outreach and SalesLoft and Groove and Apollo are starting to invest heavily in artificial intelligence? Yes, is the answer. Okay. So every time you hit send all and somebody replies, that trains the machine how to do your job. Therefore, we have to start to unlock the brain like we used to with SDRs pre-2015 and enable them to have best practices templates, because we're looking at this, but also teaching them about the industry. The number one gap that I see across SDRs, right, and sales dev leaders is we don't actually know our ICP. We don't actually know. And we spend too much time over focusing on how to push a button and not enough training someone of what is a director of operations in manufacturing doing. And not just manufacturing, industrial manufacturing versus consumer packaged goods manufacturing. My friends, if I'm in leadership right now, I'm investing on education. So my people, when they do make the customizations, actually know what they're talking about, right? Whether that's on LinkedIn, whether that's on email, etc. Almost all sequences have some auto steps. I appreciate you sharing, Paul. Definitely don't rebuild refresh sequences often enough. It's Paul. It's all good. Everyone else is so important there. Is calling it out. Yeah. So John, exactly. John, what's up, John? Hope you're doing great, man. I haven't caught up with you in a minute. Let's see. Never use send all. Yep. So I think you guys get this kind of concept here that when you hit send all, and again, I want to make this practical for you, right? A lot of this is just building a different muscle internally. And sales ops teams we find consistently could be overwhelmed, right? Or guess what? They've only used these tools once or twice, so they didn't even know what the heck to do with it. And so what I want you all to think, is what are the right steps to be doing? I'll give you an example of like LinkedIn, for example. I'm going to talk about that in more detail next, but if someone's not active on LinkedIn, and I just want to kind of put this in perspective for you. Let's say my sequence has something that has a LinkedIn step on it. And let's say you're one of those people who's micromanaging, I hit the skip button, an automated thing. Well, what if they're not active on LinkedIn? And so I skip the LinkedIn steps. That kind of makes sense, right? I probably shouldn't, allow people to, I wouldn't want them to reach out if the people aren't active on LinkedIn. So why are you punishing them for hitting skip? Again, we have to understand the job of the SDR leader, the global SDR leader, marketing, whoever works as the leader of that group, is to optimize this and feed the best of the best data, educate our people, so then when they are doing outreach, they sound intelligent, right? And that's knowing when, again, to utilize things like chat bots, and then also knowing when to teach them how to have just a one-to-one conversation. And so again, I think a lot of people, at least that I see right now, are so over-focused on, implementing Drift or implementing these other tools at the exact wrong times to when we should be implementing people. It's called most AI today is what you call human in the loop. That it's not true AI that's working. It's that at some point you insert a human in the loop. And I encourage all of you to think about it that way. Are you constantly optimizing your sequences and your strategies of like the exact right time to have the human in the loop? Are you doing better account segmentation to where they're spending more time with the right people, et cetera? And then the last thing I'm going to talk about here, and then like I said, we're going to have about 10 minutes for Q&A, is I'm going to talk about the power of all these different platforms. And for some of you, I think a lot of people, almost every SDR organization we use LinkedIn. What is shocking is how few organizations have a cohesive like LinkedIn strategy, right? And what I mean by that is it's the way that your people add contacts on a consistent basis, that they post content that's meant to engage with their audience, and then how they actually engage on the platform. And again, you could insert Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter for LinkedIn, depending on where your audience is. It's all the same game. You need to add more relevant buyers, right? We worked with a client, an NFL team actually, right, this COVID, March and April. The team of 10, their premium sponsorship team, added 12,000 new CEOs and VPs of marketing in 2 months. Now, guess what? How much better is that than an email list? Right now, and then they're putting out pieces of content that are getting hundreds of interactions in that target market, right? That we're not training people how to turn on their brains. Every SDR needs to treat like, hey, you're managing your own territory. You're managing it. Go connect with everybody. Put out content that's relevant to them. Engage by liking and commenting. Again, it's not just all call to action stuff, people. That we've got to move away from that mindset consistently. Now, Gong actually did a killer report on this. Consistently, the best call to action right now, and I guess that could change in 2 months, but I guess you need to be on top of it. You need to be watching these trends and not going to autopilot the shit you were doing 2 years ago and still running the same tired ass plays, right? You need to pay attention. And Gong showed that the data showed by almost 2 to 1 as opposed to putting in a specific date and time. When the call to action was like, look, based on XYZ, and it was specific, right? That's the key. It can't just be XYZ. It's got to be based on industrial manufacturing of blah, blah, blah. I know that you're probably starting to think about this set. Let me know if you're open to learning more. At a minimum, I want to just share you on what other people are thinking about this. So let me know if the timing's good to share some information. And then they get that first yes, and then they book the meeting. And I'm telling you, more and more, we're seeing these sequences of we're okay with it not all being call to action, because actually the conversion rates are higher. So when we're using these other platforms, when we're using LinkedIn, we're using video, right? we have to think about, how we're, are we just, are we using LinkedIn just like a new form of email, or are we actually engaging with people, right? Are we actually making a connection with those people, liking their posts, commenting on their posts? Like, I'll give you a very basic play, and I want you to tell me what you think makes more logical sense. Okay, I run a list of people. I'm just going to pick directors of customer success. In that list, I then sort by people who are active, have posted in the last 30 days on Sales Navigator. I then go into Brenda. Brenda has posted, and guess what? Most executives get this many comments. They get none, maybe one or two, and they're all employees. So I comment. I say, Brenda, this webinar looked interesting. I'm also, on the forefront of thinking about modern ways to interact with customers, so I appreciated the share. Then step 2 in your sequence. So step 1 is you build list and you interact with, X number of people, and then you put them into your sequence. That's step 1. Step 2 is I wait 4 days. I go back and see if she posted again. Guess what? She did, or she shared something. Hey, this is interesting. Here's, blah, 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 no pitch. Then I wait 4 more days, and then I DM her. I come over the top with a video. I say, hey, Brenda, I followed your content for the last 2 weeks. This is what I found is interesting. If this is top of mind, happy to send over some details, and maybe we can connect, later next week, around Thursday. Again, you can think about how to use the call to actions and test that. So I just spent, from day 1 of building a list, I now have had 2 interactions with her, and I'm telling you, executives will remember. And then I'm DMing. So within, like 9 days, instead of just going straight for the jugular on call emails, when someone's active on LinkedIn, why aren't you using LinkedIn at the start of the sequence? Why? Why would you choose? I mean, just think about the rationality here. Why would you choose to go purely cold? Same thing as, like, why would you choose not to use video or voicemail on LinkedIn, right? Why would you choose not to do it? So this is a great question. So I'll answer Seth's content. What if your ICP does not produce much content to reference? So this is a great question. So in that case, guess what? 2 things. Step 1 is you go to look at their activity. Okay. Most people, I think it's like less than 3% of people post on LinkedIn. In our little sales bubble, we can't believe that because, everyone's a thought leader, right? But I bet if you go to their activity, you'll see they're active. And then guess what I can do? I get a pattern. I can see what you like and comment. So then when I come with a DM, I'm saying, hey, I also commented on this other post. I've seen your name come up a few times, boom, and then I'm right back to it. If they're not, hey, and guess what? If they're not active on any social channel on this, then you go to call email. Skip, call email day 1. I just skipped the first 3. So again, guys, we've got to think, turn on our brains. Right? Not just be overly focused on volume. I did a post about this. Guys, you have more options except the more button. You have the optimize button. You have the behind the scenes automate button. And you've got the new mediums button. All of these are going to dramatically increase the volume. The reps that are doing this right now with our client base we've got a rep, an SDR, who literally almost got fired because he's getting so much inbound leads from people outside his territory. And all he's doing is putting out relevant content on LinkedIn and connecting with people. And he's putting out 2 pieces a week. So again, I'm not trying to turn this into a big, like, how to use LinkedIn. But again, this is the new normal. Okay. What I want all of you to realize is that what I want all of you to do is go completely destroy and rebuild your optimization calendar. I then want you to sit down and go set up a demo with whatever sales engagement platform that you use. And I would ask them, what are the top 50 automations that your best-in-class companies are running? And I would go rip all of those off. Then I would think about my sequence design. And I would think about, how am I using these other methods, right? So that is my big finale. And I think all of you need to really go back. These are all actionable. These are all things that you can go do. But this is the future. This is the future. I think there's 128 billion, is it billion or million? Million business emails sent every day. That was pre-COVID. It's got to be like 200 million. I love the phone right now. Big fan of the phone. Nobody's using it, right? Can't get a hold of people. Give me a break, right? But it's a mix of all of this. It's integrated. And I want you to start to focus and working with your people on outcomes. So, all right, we've got time for some Q&A here. I think I answered a few that kind of popped up in the chat. So feel free, drop your questions here, or I have taken off the mute. So if anybody wants to just chime in, we've got about 5 minutes or so for questions. I'm super pumped. to walk through this. And I hope, again, my goal for today is to get you to really rethink what this position is becoming. This position now is more quantitative, right? It's more and more creative at the same time, which for someone like me is super, super exciting. I get to make decisions based on data, and then I get to try all kinds of creative new ways to break it and then constantly come back to optimize it. So, all right, let's see what we got here. Can you send Matt's video over LinkedIn? No, you cannot, and that's why it works. Exactly. See, Eric, I want to break the whole construct of can we send mass X. Instead, it's about can we do less higher quality activity? Can we do less? It's like that same woman that I mentioned who's asked to do 134 activities a day. Her boss also in the same breath says, and I need them to be relevant. I mean, this girl's literally having like breakdowns. Like you have SDRs in your team, when you keep saying more and more and more, they're having like mental breakdowns, guys, because they're not getting any data about what's working and what's not. They're just told to hit more over and over again, and they're not getting trained on modern sequences. You're just training on emails and calls. Stop. Like, get up. Get clever. Stop going back to the same shit that worked with your SDR leader 5 years ago. Stuff's done. It's over. Right? So for me, Eric, I would think about how can I train them to send good videos on LinkedIn? And I'm sure there is. I'm sure there's the easiest ways. I know you can like use Vidyard and you can create like what do you call it? Like a templated video for like a company, and then you could hit send, which that I don't necessarily hate. But that's a great question. All right, David Delaney says, lol. That's good, David. I'm glad I gave you a little chuckle. I always like to make David chuckle. He knows that. All right, my friends, we have time for, I think, like maybe one or two more questions before I wrap up here. Again, you can find me. I'm super active on LinkedIn. If you go search just Jake Dunlap Sales on LinkedIn, same thing as YouTube. I've got over 300 plus videos up on YouTube. I encourage a lot of you to go check that out. So yeah, we've got time for about one more. If we don't have any more, I'll drop this in the chat. So everyone take a look. I just dropped our latest ebook in the chat that I want all of you to take a look at. That really just talks about what does modern scaling look like. So a lot of what I'm talking about is where is the puck headed? Where's the ball going? And this really talks about just rethinking the way that you're even building your teams. And rethinking, instead of, we hire these sales operations people, or we hire that get overwhelmed really easily. And I think there's some really actionable takeaways here if you're an SDR leader. John Blake says, what's the reply rate of DM compared to text? So again, this is where I think a lot of leaders lose their shit, is they're like, I can't track it. You can't track it. Now I can go and track a success rate if it's in there. I know like Morgan Ingram, for example, says his is almost 30%. So his response rates to voicemails and videos is almost 30% compared to text. So that's from Morgan, right? But the key is, again, like how long should a video be? The video should just be, you can only send I think it only is like up to that. So it should be like 30 seconds. It should be very similar to voicemail, but the key is it's got to be specific. That person has to feel like it was made for them, right? We've all seen these fake videos now that are like, insert your name here. And it's like, hi, Ryan, hey, what's going on, man? And like, it has my name fake there. It's like, come on, bro. Like I've seen that 800 times. I know it's not real. So the anecdotal evidence is very, very high. Feel free to hit up Morgan if you want, because I know he's actually has some straight stats on it. So that's it, everyone. I hope you have an amazing rest of your week. Enjoy. There's some amazing speakers the rest of today. I'm really glad to be here to help to kind of kick things off and get things moving in the right direction. Again, if you ever need me, you need anything, find me on LinkedIn. That's where you can find me. If you guys have any questions about this, hey, how are other organizations doing this? Jake, I get it. I want to optimize. I'm not sure how. Then here's how you can get at me. So thanks again, everyone. Have a great rest of your Monday and rest of your week.